Okay, I'm going to take my self-introduction design and customize the fonts being used in that design. Right now I'm using Arial and let's see what else. And default serif, so probably Times. It's not even explicit here. What I'm going to do in this demo is upgrade these default fonts, which are web-safe fonts, to custom web fonts. So when I'm done, there will be no default fonts or web-safe fonts in this layout at all. Let's get going. I'm going to fork this design so that I have a copy. Let's see, did it copy? Can't tell. Here we go. All right. And I'm going to call this self-introduction font updates. And I'm going to go to Google Fonts to go find some fonts. So I'm going to need something for the splash element, both headline and or title, and then this contact information. And then here on my second page, I've got a panel header, a panel sign off, a section header, and section text. So potentially up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different fonts could be represented. I can repeat some, but I could possibly do any number of combinations of fonts. So let's take a look. For my name font, I'm going to want something that's going to have some personality. It's going to have my name, and maybe it will be standalone. There will be no other use of this font. So maybe I'll search for a display font. This is sort of Star Trek-y. It's very interesting. Now this is a very nice font, but there are a lot of thin elements to it, especially on some of these secondary verticals. So probably not useful for my layout. I'm looking for something that's very thick, very slab-like. This one might be okay. Let's try this one. Don't know if it's totally me, but it's slab enough. I'm going to just grab the piece inside of the style tag and bring that into my CSS. Just like that. And then here's the rule. I'll go ahead and just go right to the text here. I just want to quickly see if it's going to work for me. So here's my H1. I'll add that. And here it is. It might work. Probably needs to be bigger. It's kind of thick. It's probably thick because it's set in an H1, and an H1 as a header it adds actually to the weight of the font anyway. So one way around this is I'm going to change it from an H1 to a div. And look what happens. You see how it got a little less thick? I can reduce the size a little bit. All right. You know what? That works for me. I'm going to go with that. Now I'm going to find font to represent the email and the phone number. That will not be a slab font, and it will not be a display font. I think it should be a sans serif font. Excuse me. Maybe this one. Yeah, this should be fine. Let's choose light. Let's contrast that thickness of the title with something that's lighter. All right, so you see what's happening here is I put these fonts in my quote-unquote shopping cart. They're everything's getting added, and all the excuse me, the style's getting added, updated, the rules are getting updated. So that's good. I just need to pay attention to that because now I can replace this. Oops. This import rule, and now I have Montserrat. I'm going to copy that and use Montserrat for my new font for this text and this text. So I'm going to replace old font family Arial. There. Here's the new look. What do you think? For the purposes of this demo, I think it's fine. I've changed it from standard Arial. Now, Arial's boring because this is a lot more interesting than Arial. Let's move on to this page. I've got a header, I've got a sign-off, and I've got these sections, each with its own header and then text. So I'm going to, maybe I'll set the header and the sign-off to be a similar font. Something display-like. I wonder if I can use Montserrat. Yeah, how about bold and then medium italic. All right, so I've added those two, and look what happens here. I have to update this import rule, so all those fonts get loaded. And now I've got all these different Montserrats. Montserrat is already a font font rule here, but I've got 500 italic and 700 bold. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to some things about me. I'm going to add Montserrat. So now this text says Montserrat. And it's loading the bold version. So if I wanted to be specific, I'd say font weight 500. And, or which one? 700, sorry. 700. And you'll see that it's presenting the bold version of this. I'm going to copy this whole style rule and go to my sign off at the bottom. Set that sign off. Let's see, what did I do? Oops. Okay. There. It's part of the CSS. So I have the sign off, but I want it to not be bold. I want it to be this medium italic. So medium 500 italic. I'm going to set the weight to 500. So now it's light. And then I'm going to set the font style to italic. Let's get all these quotes right here. There we go. Okay. So now it's Montserrat 500 italic. I just translated the all the different options here in the variations through my CSS. So I think the header on this panel and the sign-on on this panel look much better. Now to do these little bits with the info. I think here maybe I'll try for a different look, something that stands out. Kind of thinking this one, Antonio, for my headers. Right, because it's, maybe I'll do semi-bold and thin. So I'm going to update my import rule. And then I've got Antonio 600 and Antonio 100. Okay, so here's the CSS for this. Let's go and take a look. H3s and Ps. So H3s, I'm going to set to Antonio. And Ps and Lis, I'm going to set to Antonio. That was easy. Let's see. Antonio 100 and 600. So let's set the weight. So on the H3s, I'll set the font weight to 600. And on the Lis and Ps, I will set the font weight to 100. All right, and there you have it. We can see from top to bottom, I've got a slab display font for my title, contrasted by some thin but sizable, rounded sans serif type for this contact information. So everything is quite readable. And then in my secondary panel, I've got a header that stands out with some high contrast black, and then a sign off that is in a similar style, but it's italic and lighter weight. And then these bits here, I don't know, looking at this, maybe this is not the best choice, but I wanted to have some variety. I wanted to have a change of the width to make these very narrow so that they stand out visually. And the combination of the spacing between and this narrow font repeating with this blue and brown color combination, visually it immediately tells you that there's a couple sections here to regard and to think of as separate but grouped together. Okay, so this visually is an improvement over the bare bones setup that we started with, and that's what our font updates can do for us. So have fun with your font updates.